So you said that after you had that fracture, and the doctor said that you have to wait and see what's going to happen next.
Right.
You and your family went through an ordeal of around 6 months where you went to everyone. You went to
Yeah,
doctor.
I think we were in Bahawalpur, and obviously the family was not ready to accept that this tumor can eventually have this consequences. And even in 75, people were so worried about the word cancer that that would actually mean end of life. So we were trying, my family was trying everything from doctors in Bahawalpur, Multan, Lahore, Pindi, and on top of that, the desi type of hikmat and saints and Sufis and duas and everything. But eventually, it was decided to land up in CMH Pindi, and where we thought that the topmost generals, the Surgeon General at that time, they would operate me and find out the biopsy whether it is malignant, it is tumor, it is tuberculosis. And while I was myself went into the operation theater, I was told later that the doctors, in the first instance, said that the biopsy doesn't confirm malignancy, but the appearance and other symptoms look like it's malignant. So my family gave go ahead to the doctors, and they amputated the whole arm from the shoulder right up to that. And when I got up, when I came out of anesthesia, it was a 3-hour major operation. And when I found out that I've lost my arm, it was very, very traumatic, shocking, you know.
What was the first thought that came to you the moment? Because you didn't know you
No,
are
I didn't
going
know.
for a
In fact,
surgery
with the
for
bandages, and
amputation.
I was mentally not prepared that this thing would come out to be such a drastic action. It would result into such thing. I was always expecting that they will scrap some of the bone and this will be okay. And I could not feel whether I have lost my arm or not because everything is bandaged. You know, it looks at, you have a feeling of numbness. So when I asked the doctor, they said, whatever has been done for your good. So that's the moment when I realized that this is the eventual thing. Anyway,
What was so the moment the doctor said this to you? What was I'm sure it must be as fresh as that day in your mind.
uh,
What was the first thought that came to you?
I thought that why me? These are this. I was initially when we were doing the research, it was always told that this bone tumor is very very rare disease in teenagers. And when I found out that I've got it and I lost my arm, so the first reaction is why me? And I think that's why I find out and I want to help people understand that you are not the only one. When you, when after a few days, when I started moving around in the hospital, I found out the misery around me, which was much more serious than myself. People had lost their legs and they were immobile. People had lost their, spinal cord sensation and they were, their lower body was completely paralyzed. And so many ailments. The hospital visit is an eye opener when you find out that you are probably the lucky one. And started realizing that I'm fortunate that I am still mobile. I don't have to hop around because the room was the private room in CMH is always shared by two people. And my next neighbor bed was somebody who had lost his leg, and he would hop around to go to the washroom. So then, and I think in that time, my family was very, very supportive, and they were particularly my mamu. He was besides me, and he was giving me all sorts of courageous stories and uh, things about World War II, how people survived. and those types of things, which was quite I would say heartening and
तो
morale boosting.
आपकी आपकी स्टोरी से ये लगता है कि your time period between being shocked and this feeling that why me, to you accepting it, that time period, how long was that time period? Because from you, it seems for you it was not that long for you to overcome this feeling of अब तो
I
सब
think
कुछ खत्म हो.
I was, as I said, that I was fortunate. God takes something away from you and compensate you in some other way. I think
Exactly.
apart from family, I was very fortunate that I got that willpower and determination very quickly. Third day in my hospital, I was trying to relearn writing with my left hand, and I sent a note to my principal back in Bahawalpur that, and it was very emotional. If I can narrate it in Urdu, I remember मैंने उसकी शुरू इस तरह की थी कि 17 बहारों के बाद, because I was 17 years old, 17 बहारों के बाद मुझे खिजां का समा नजर आ रहा. These were normal, I think, thought process for a young boy at that time. But I started relearning the writing, and after 1 month of my operation, I was back behind the steering wheel of my car. I was trying to relearn the driving. There were no automatic cars at that time, so it was a manual gear, but I could switch the gear very instantly while holding the steering wheel with my thighs, just to support the steering wheel with my thighs. So I think that learning process was quite quick, and I was
Amazing.
encouraged, throughout at my school. Um, I had to appear for my intermediate examination after only 3 months. Um, I was given the offer that either I can delay my exam because I can reappear after 1 year, and I could go. I said I would go ahead because I had already prepared up to December, January, so I have no problem. And I had no intention to go to medical college at that time, although that was originally planned. So I appeared in my exam. I took a helper whom I would dictate in one of the secluded corners of the examination halls, which was tucked away from the main hall. And I still got first division. I still got admission in medical college, but then I decided to go and pursue commerce line. I went to Haley College Commerce in Lahore. I first year in Haley College, again when my speed of writing was not good enough, I could not complete my whole paper. But I was so afraid and shy to ask for any help because at that time probably there was not much awareness about uh, special persons or disabled person. So I didn't ask for any help, although I think I could have got it. But by second year, my speed of writing was pretty good, and I got good grades and position. And then I went to MBA, where again I got first position and gold medal. So that's something where, in terms of academic excellence, from I continued my previous record of keeping top positions in my class, and it was quite satisfying. Yeah.
It's a while I'm hearing this story, I am trying to relive, and for me, it is very difficult to fathom that. Then you said that you were lucky, and in 3 days you were determined, and you were back to life. And I think that's a big accomplishment at that time, for that stage, at that youth, not to have the negative thoughts. I'm sure you must have had a lot of negative thoughts, but the determination that you are talking about is commendable. And I'm sure you must have had physical and emotional challenges in that time period and further on, which you've been talking about. So, what was inside you telling you to overcome those emotional and physical challenges?
I think part of it was my uh, personality or my training in the first few years, because I was very competitive in my studies and I was very competitive in terms of whatever I wanted to do. And it was probably, and not easy to give up that now I won't do anything. It was just not, you know, I could not perceive that, right? And part of it, I firmly believe that part of it is God given as well. I think when I look back, I had more frustrations in probably practical life, in my professional life, while I had achieved a lot of things already, than when I was relearning in early stages of my post-operative life. At that time, I was still showing a lot of enthusiasm in relearning new things. You know, when I first time went out of my, away from my family, basically, because the family was supportive. So in terms of daily chores, my mother would help me. There were other help in the house. They would help me in terms of, dressing up, in terms of getting whatever I wanted. So when I even started my job in the bank after my MBA, there was a different dress code which I would wear, but my family, my mother could help me. But when I went abroad for the first time, and I was in American bank and they sent me to Hong Kong for a 6 months training, and I had to live there alone. They had given small apartments there, and that's where I learned to do a lot of things on my own because I was not willing to take any help from anybody, from my friends or colleagues who were living in the next room. And while dressing up, and I did not take any exception from my superior or supervisors that, okay, I don't want to do this thing because of my, disability, and I don't want to wear a tie, or I don't want to, do these things. And I managed to do everything myself. I learned that how to, close a button of a sleeve before wearing the sleeve and put your hand, shove your hand through that small opening. And I
Yeah.
learned how to, tie a knot. So those were small things. And I really, really was very fortunate that that period was, in fact, was full of enthusiasm for learning new things. And afterwards, I went to Cambridge University for my studies for another 1 year. And again, I had to live as a student in a dormitory, in a small, room, doing everything myself. Relearning to bicycle as well, to wash some of my utensils as well, because after your meal in the room, you would like to clean up your stuff as well. So these were some of the things which look very, very small in nature to us. And I started doing things so well that I would not feel handicapped in any way. I would compete with anybody else at the same level as anybody else would. Yeah. And then
And
later
you
on,
never, it's quite commendable to hear that at that point in time you did not use your condition to take any leeway
yeah.
or from anybody. I mean, that's a actually, it takes a lot of strength to do that, and I'm sure you must be feeling that also
Actually,
inside.
Amma, to tell you the truth, when I got my first artificial limb, which was made from Fauji Foundation, Rahul Pindi, it was because my parents could not afford to send me abroad. So everything we were doing it locally. So it was quite uncomfortable feeling supporting a limb on your body, strapped around your body. There was a leather front, the upper front was leather and the lower front was plastic. And besides extra weight, it becomes uncomfortable particularly in a hot weather because it starts sweating inside. And I had to support it for almost 10 to 12 hours a day because if I go out of my house, if I'm standing or walking in a park or in a shopping, you know, mall or anything, there would people who would stop me and ask me, "Oh, you are such a young man. You are such a good young man. What happened to you?" And जिस तरह हमारे माशरे में होता है कि they try to sympathize with me.
Exactly.
They try to feel sorry for me. कि ये कैसे हो गया? इतनी young age में क्यों हो गया? बड़े अच्छे खूबरू नौजवान हैं, ये क्यों हो गया? So in order to avoid, because that would really irritate me. That would
I'm
really
sure. I'm sure.
And then I started supporting that limb for long hours because if I take out my limb and go without a limb, everybody would notice me. If I support that limb, at least only 2 out of 10 people would notice it that it is something artificial. And later on in my life, my married life, my actually wife encouraged me that why do you want to put yourself in this torture by wearing this limb throughout the day in hot weather while you are even going out casually in the evening. I said, this is the problem. This is the problem. I don't want to be noticed by people. And but when I started going abroad, I've been very fortunate. I landed up in good jobs. I got the opportunities to go out on vacation or other training program. Outside Pakistan, I would feel much freer because I lived in Singapore for 5 years lately. Nobody would bother. Nobody would question. Nobody would stop me and ask you what happened. So
So,
I
so
would
you
feel
didn't wear
much
the limb there.
right. Yeah. So, but that is something which even today, if I have I think the best thing I'm looking forward now that after 40 years of serving in banks, I would not be required to wear any tie or suit. And I'm really looking forward to that. That
I'm
I
so
would be,
glad you didn't wear it today.
yeah, as a choice, I would not do it. So that is something I'm really looking forward that now I would choose something to do where I don't have to be, wearing this compulsorily.
So Abid, ये बताएं कि आपने ये कहा कि you've told us how emotionally and physically life changed for you, but also tell me ये जो आपने decision था, you were ready to go to a medical college and you got an admission in there, and then you went towards the commerce side. Did it have something to do with this incident, or was it something else?
Well, Huma, if you talk to people of my vintage, during that time, 70s, when children were going to school or late high school, they were told that there are only 2 or 3 options for you. You have to become a doctor, you have to become an engineer, or you have to become join armed forces or something like that, or civil service. So I was myself not interested in medicine, but my
Okay.
mother was so passionate. She thought that I have the academic, results, and I can get into medical college because she thought that in our larger family, her brothers or her sisters or other in a larger family, nobody has gone into medicine profession because they took an easy way out. So she pushed me, and obviously, I was very close to my mother, and I gave up, and I said, okay, I'll do the medicine. But after my operation, I was given an option. That now you have an option to do whatever you want to do.
You had to
So,
pay a very heavy price for that option.
but I was very happy. I was very happy that I don't have to go to medicine because some people suggested that I could still do medicine, but I thought that I would be a mediocre if at best, even if I go through the compulsory surgery and medical practitioner requirement, I would not be at my best. Even the patient would not take me as the best option. So I decided to get into this commerce and MBA because MBA was also very, you know, fascinating at that time. It's a new profession, so there were a lot of, I would say, people would fancy the MBA degree at that time. So then I decided to do that.
This is I must say that, and I'm thankful to you for you to share this story and be so honest about your story. So I want to take a pause and compliment you on being so honest with us. And your story is, and the only silver lining that I see at that time was that you got to do what you wanted to do. And of course, you're so right about the fact that there are certain things that even children who are, even nowadays, I feel that the options given to the children are not just what they want to do, even in these, I'm not talking about the 70s, I'm talking about now also. So I think ye ek bahut badi baat hoti hai that you get to do what you want to do. And when you went to the commerce college and you were doing something that you thought was something new, something exciting, something fancy, and at that point in time I think आपकी ड्राइव भी वो थी. So आपने एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट बात कही. आपने कहा कि उस वक्त जब मैं इतने बड़े ट्रॉमे में से गुजरा, मेरे अंदर वो बहुत ड्राइव थी to learn new things, to do these things, and you went into a relatively new field at that point in time. But then you said something which I've been thinking about ever since you said that later on, when you had achieved everything you had, and honestly, you've achieved a lot in your life. So what was the difference that you were able to do it then, and it was more, there were more barriers or more difficult when you were at the stage of achievement?
I think you have raised a very, very relevant point, but I think now, maybe after working so long in the corporate world, I can now have that answer. That the difference is that when I was a student, when I was young boy, young man, I was much freer. Then I was driven by my own ambition and my own courage and motivation. When you start living a corporate life, you start making a lot of compromises on a day-to-day basis. You have to live in a corporate life, safeguarding yourself from everybody around. It's a very competitive world. You have to live in a life which is driven by the corporate objectives and values, which may not have the same, value for yourself as an individual. So, and particularly in these professions, if I were an architect or if I were an engineer or doing something of my own, I could have probably had the same spirit of learning and energizing myself every day. But when you are bound by corporate world, your whole ambition becomes the self-achievement, the goal of moving ahead of your own peers. It steals that natural energy or enthusiasm. I think mera agar if I
What's
have
the
to,
lesson that you have learned?
I
What would you advise people who are in the corporate world, who want to achieve, who want to be somebody like you, who want to be in places? So what is one thing that you can tell
again,
them?
Huma, my message is not restricted to people who are in corporate world. I think हमारे मुल्क में आज भी this option जो आपने कहा ना कि children have an option to do something. This option is available to well-to-do families, to affluent class. Now, today, our children, and we are very fortunate, our children can do whatever they want to do. But children who are in not so fortunate position, even today, they are driven by the economic factors, what they want to do. They want to study and they want to get a degree to get a job, to get financial strength, not what they want to pursue as a person. And
Very
I think
true.
that's where हमारे जैसे मुल्क में जो बच्चों का पोटेंशियल है वो नहीं आता पूरा, because we are preparing children in schools and colleges and universities only to get some job, whether they like it or not, whether it उनके पैशन और उनकी एनर्जी और उनके शौक के मुताबिक है या नहीं है, उनको ये जॉब करनी पड़ती है, बिकॉज पीपल आर सो यू नो pressed for this thing. It's a very small, maybe 1 or 2% of population who are affluent, who can afford their children to send abroad and who can have the luxury of studying Egyptology or music or culinary experience. Rest of the population, I think, one of the reason हमारा जो academic system है, हमारा जो curriculum है, I think it does not bring the best out of our people because they are so confused between what they like and what they have to do. And that's I I don't I don't know the answers yet, but I think a lot of societies are struggling with this. I was in
Very,
Singapore, and even that society is struggling. That Singaporeans or most of the Eastern societies are so disciplined that it kills the innovation. The innovation, if you look at it, still comes from the West. Later on, China and Japan and Singapore can copy it and make things, as a copy version much better. But the original innovation is not coming from this type of societies and this type of system, because we are preparing people only to do jobs,
and
not
you see,
excel with
jobs
them.
are, and now jobs are scarce. So we need to prepare entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So tell me, with your experience being at so many leadership positions, and I'm not particularly talking about your message or your insights for somebody who is in a bank. I'm saying anybody who is a leader, maybe he might be a school teacher, or he might be working in an organization, or maybe an entrepreneur, or maybe a father or a son, but wants to be a leader. What will be 2 or 3 insights as a leader you would want to tell to young people who are at any leadership position or who aspire to be leaders, not necessarily in a bank? What would be your advice, your lessons, some
I think
insights for them?
I think whether parents or teachers or business leaders, one thing we must inculcate or we must try to learn to see the strengths of people working around you, to see the strength in your children. Not, we have this maybe in our DNA, in our society, we always have this convention that respect elders, respect the authority, respect what the seniors are telling you. And that probably then we can only advise the seniors and elders that be mindful of the strengths and talents in younger people and try to bring them or try to make them play on their strengths. We may have a lot of talents, and I think in a population of 220 million people, it is just not possible that we don't have, sports people coming up to the world standard. We don't have engineers and doctors coming to the world standard. We don't have innovators and entrepreneurs coming to the world standard. There are this, it's a pity that in 200 million people, we struggle to find one Olympic medal in the whole world, while in very small nation, one person or one swimmer can grab 4 or 5 or 6 gold medals alone, because we never encourage people to do what they want to do. The good thing is, as you said, that in the recent past, the jobs are hard to find. We as a country are not creating jobs uh, at the same pace at the same pace where the population is increasing. But there are younger people now who are trying new ideas. हमारी generation में it was almost impossible to think of starting of your own.
Exactly.
We were brought up to find a job unless you are an son or daughter of an industrialist or a very very rich people. You were you were supposed to do a job either in government or in armed forces or in a corporate world or in a private service. That's it. But now I can see, and I think during the last year and a half, I think COVID has provided even more avenues. People are finding the new ways of surviving and new ways of starting their businesses. And now it is giving people motivation to start working and starting their businesses from their home as well. A lot of young females have done it, young boys and girls are doing it. And it's an encouraging sign that these types of taboos are getting removed from our society. That you are not born just to do a job; you can do some other creative and you know innovative
So
things.
people, बिल्कुल सही कहा आपने, and I think that's where I think our society should be going towards, is towards creating entrepreneurs. And pandemic, the silver lining of this pandemic has been that it has pushed people towards thinking on how they can do something on their own. And you've absolutely right, that you have seen so many people come up with something new. So all of these people, all of these kids, the youth who's graduating, who's in the universities, who are in these business schools, and and the jobs are scarce. What do they need to do? What do they need to think about? What is your advice to them? How can they be good in becoming good entrepreneurs, good business people? Um, Anything that they should be doing, any areas or any strengths in their character, in their personalities, that over the years that you have discovered is something that takes or sustains people a long way to go?
I think we have to realize that all young people or all students are not of the same caliber. There are differences in their um, intellect level. There are differences in their habits in terms of how much hard work they want to pursue. And I think they probably, it's very difficult for putting onus on them to do what they are supposed to do in their lives. Our our framework, our academic framework, and our vocational framework should provide them some guidance that how we uh, put different children into different lines of pursuits, because there are some people who may have an inclination towards music or arts or uh, you know fine things, and there are other people who may be very good in terms of scientific things like medicine or physics or engineering, and there are other people who may be socially very acceptable, and they may have good in services businesses or hospitality business or some other business. Unfortunately, we do not have that type of institutional or vocational framework where the students can be guided. And that's why I feel bad for our young generation that they're not guided by anything. They are on their own. Now there are some smart people or some privileged privileged students who can pursue their passion, but others are guided by whatever uh, you know fad of the month is or fad of the year is. That if IT becomes, if bachelors in computer sciences becomes a fad, everybody starts doing that. Uh, MBA becomes a fad, so everybody starts doing MBA. So now I think we must realize, and maybe corporate world and private sector can also start now, have those types of um, disciplines in educational institutions. They can support it. That, it's very unfortunate that our young generation is not given any counseling or any guidance anywhere else in the world. If you look at more developed societies, it's not that children are on their own, whatever they try to achieve. They are guided, counseled, they are given opportunities in different fields, and nothing is better or worse than other things. I think here we also prioritize that, okay, medicine is better than engineering, and engineering is better than commerce, and commerce is better than BA. Those types of things are not very healthy for young generation to box in.
Very true. So instead of boxing in into the careers that are already existing, आपकी advice ये है that we should train our young generation to realize and understand their own talent and their passion, and the society should actually help them pursue that. I think that's a responsibility of everybody. That's what the children should be taught. That's what the framework of education should be about. And that's where I think corporate sector also should be playing in a role in that. So Abid, ये बताएं कि अब तो आप free हैं. You are not in a box anymore.
Yeah.
So what are your passions that you would be pursuing?
Again, take more time for golf now. This is one thing again. I must tell you that I wish I could show you my video, and I would definitely do it if I start speaking to young people to motivate them. I can reasonably play good golf.
Amazing.
So that's something which, as a personal free time, I would try to pursue more. But the other thing which I talked to you earlier as well, that I would like to spend time in coaching and guiding people. I would like to, particularly for underprivileged class or people who have got some deficiencies or some, now these are called special children, because if I can prove to them with my personal example that sky is the limit and people can achieve even with their handicaps and even with their shortcoming, that would be my great, I would say, contribution to society, that I would love to do it. There are no shortage of these people in Pakistan. I think we have lot of people who live in depression and who live in different types of deprivations, not just the physical, but the mental as well. And that's something I'm trying to find a platform for that. I can use different platforms for that. I can go and visit universities, or I can go and do some sort of schools or colleges where these types of children are studying, to show my own examples. That's something I owe it to society.
That's a very deep thought, and I think that's a great legacy to leave. And I hope you are able to pursue this, because if you can change even a few lives, that's a great contribution. Thank you so much, Abid, for being here today, for telling us your story and giving us these great insights. I wish you a lot of luck. We'll be in touch with you and hope we can also somehow be of any assistance to you in pursuing your passions from here onwards.
Thank you. Thank you, Huma, for your asking a very, very relevant question. And I hope that I have been able to answer some of those things.
You've been amazing. Thank you so much, because you spoke from your heart, and I'll be in touch with you.
Welcome. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.